What's really bad is when they beat you with the carrot, though.
I know. I got there. I see the carrot. I get there, and then you're just beat to death. You just thought this was a carrot. It's an orange stick.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 336 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin. Good morning, Donna.
Hello, David.
Are you in the Christmas spirit yet?
I am not a Christmas person. I never really have been. It's not my gig. That's a lot of work to do. Can't we just get together and have dinner and a party?
Yeah, that sounds like my wife. She's like, you spend X dollars for these people. They spend X dollars on you, which tends to be the same amount of money. You end up with something that you didn't want to begin with. They get something they didn't want. It's like, who's really winning in this whole thing?
Giving each other money, and you're exchanging the money, and and then you're doing all the work to decorate things. That stay up, and then you got to take that down.
Yeah, I know.
I got other things to do.
I saw yesterday there's a tree that you basically hang it on the wall. It's not really a tree, but that's kind of what they're saying it is. And you just kind of tack it up on the wall, and there you go. It's a quote unquote space saving tree, but I like the fact that you can put it up and take it down within a minute.
I was excited when we got a really nice pre-lit tree.
Yeah.
Because, you just plug it all in and you're done. You don't running the lights is a nightmare, right? Getting them tangled and all that. But when those little things start going out, finding which one needs help.
Oh, yeah.
It's good as long as there's one on each thing. But then two, and then no. So that two is a nightmare.
Yeah. And there's some people that are like, oh man, that's the whole thing to get you in the mood for Christmas is the tree decorating and all that. And I'm like,
wow.
I don't know, man. I've never been there. Sorry.
Yeah. So this comes out on New Year's Eve. Now that's a holiday I can get into. You go to parties, you have good food.
Watch the ball drop.
Yeah. And then there's, college football and pork, sauerkraut, collard greens, black-eyed peas, the classic, depending on where you are in the country, there's generally always, you eat these things for good luck and money and all this in the new year.
Yep.
I could, but it's like, okay, well, then I'm done. And everybody's like, I'm so glad the holidays are over.
Yeah. Now the real work begins.
Yes.
So,
and you got to take all of that stuff down on top of all of the beginning of the year and closing out the year. To me, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know about you, but for me, Q1 is nothing but a rush to do everything to wrap up the year before.
January specifically.
It's chaotic. And so, yeah, I don't know that I look forward to it. And then you got, if you haven't already, then you should be doing annual planning, depending on where you are. Some people do it different times of the year. But for me this year, I'm having to do it in January because I couldn't find any time in December to get it done at all. So yeah, doing that all in January. So I'm glad 21 is gone. Probably just as glad as I was that 20 was gone. It's just been a continuation of mess to deal with. I don't know that 22 is going to be any better, but I do know that we're going to have a boot camp.
That is great news.
Yep. In February 22nd of 22.
2/22/22.
That's right.
2/25/22.
That's right.
It's our virtual boot camp because in September.
September.
Yep. September, we're doing something totally new. It's way out there different.
Mm-hmm.
And I blame Jen Stone of Security Metrics for giving me the idea. And
But at least I'm not the only one you can blame now for all the work you have to do.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But at least she's trying to participate a little bit. But the concept here is that we expand our boot camp to 3.5 days. And that includes and we still got rid of a half a day and put the basic HIPAA stuff in a video with a quiz that you do before you come.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you have to pass it to show up, but if you take the quiz and you realize there's probably things you don't know, just know that. So this is essentially, we took a half a day worth of stuff, put it in a video course, added a half day, and it's really coming together nicely. I'm really excited about what we're going to do, but you're going to be fully immersed like you are at the boot camp, but there's more happening and more people and stuff, breakout sessions so that everybody can do, but it's just so much. And it is boot camp. We're not talking about, 2 sessions in the morning and 1 in the afternoon with an hour lunch. No, none of that's happening.
Right. We're going to nail your hide to the wall.
But it'll be fun.
It will be fun.
Yeah. So, and you can come spend a week with us in Louisville.
Yep. So
Louisville, Kentucky. It's a central space, and it's becoming the hot spot for people to go to for conferences.
Cool.
So you can drive there from a lot of places.
So if you're a practice, you do anything in healthcare. If you're an MSP, you can bring your clients. If you're medical and you want to bring your MSP,
yeah, tell them to come.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, we will have everything gathered and be releasing in January all kinds of details. So the virtual boot camp is the way we've always done it. The new is going to be, you can come without having been to a boot camp and come to the live one. Or if you've been to the virtuals or the previous boot camps, this is taking everything to a whole new level and everything's updated with all the latest stuff. And we're going to have other folks there that are going to, more instructors so that we can have more discussions. And it's going to be in a really, really cool space.
Mm-hmm.
And what will the premier event of the week be, David?
Me speaking. It'll be Bourbon and Breeches, I'm sure.
Bourbon and Breeches happy hour. We will have the happy hour one night, but even then you will be learning. It'll be fun, but you'll be learning.
Yep.
So, yes, very excited about that. Keep in the look and it'll have a new name. There's a new name, not just the HIPAA boot camp. It's
all right.
The PriSec boot camp, so that we can build off of it.
Privacy and security.
Yeah. All right. So I'm excited. If you want to come to February, go to thehipaabootcamp.com. You can get details and register there. Then listen, probably in the next week or two, we'll be giving out information and starting our promotions of the Privacy and Security Boot Camp.
Yep.
So off we go.
All right. So let's dive into the HIPAA.
Say what?
Because we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah. So, for me, the HIPAA say what? I wanted to make sure that we put in here that there is a reason that we say when HIPAA says you should have a business continuity, disaster recovery plan, and account for things, there's a reason that if you say, oh, we're in the cloud and we're on AWS, you don't have to worry about everything. It's secure. It's all good to go. Okay, then you're worrying about confidentiality, but not integrity and availability.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to worry about all three. So let's listen just to your experience of when AWS went down and wreaked havoc recently for a whole afternoon, wasn't it? A whole day?
Oh, yeah. This is an entire day. It happened on Tuesday, whatever date that was. But it affected a lot. Now, some people didn't feel it. Some people were like, oh, I never knew it was down, which is kind of like me when somebody goes, Facebook was down. I'm like, oh, I don't care. And I didn't know it's down. but Amazon having issues, again, there's a lot of infrastructure that's built on AWS. Now, of course, Amazon itself had a lot of issues if you read some of the articles. So if your Amazon packages are late this week, now you know why.
Yeah, because they run on AWS, ironically.
Yeah. Which would be interesting if they didn't. But anyway. For us, we have a number of cloud-based platforms. Our business is highly dependent on cloud-based because we are a location independent organization.
No brick and mortar.
No brick and mortar.
brick.
We want to be able to work from anywhere as long as we have internet. And so that's where we build our business, and it works out great until it doesn't work out great.
Yeah.
And when an outage like this happens, for example, for us, our ticketing system, which is kind of the way we, communicate with clients when they have issues, send a ticket in. Our ticketing system was not functioning because it's on AWS.
But now you don't run it on AWS, but the vendor you use runs it on AWS.
That is correct.
Let's be clear. It's not just you decided to do it. Your vendor is doing it.
Yeah. Personally, I don't have anything running on AWS. Now I have a AWS S3 bucket, which is something different, houses some images and crap like that I want to host. But as far as running infrastructure on there, I don't, but my vendors do. And guess what? I don't know these things oftentimes until there's a failure. And like, oh, guess what? This vendor's on AWS because they went out. Yeah. But we had one of the platforms, we have ticketing system had issues. We had another one that we use to do administrative access elevation, I guess you could say it. So if somebody needs to be elevated to administrative rights for something that wasn't functioning.
That's key.
Yeah. And we had a part of our security platform. One of them wasn't functioning. It didn't have anything to do with the security itself. It was part of the platform on it. So when we logged into the portal, we couldn't get certain information. It wasn't critical information, but it still affected it. And then lastly, because of how integrated a lot of our systems are, the fact that our ticketing system went down, it also integrates into our remote access into clients. And so that was not functioning. The integration wasn't functioning. We could still do it. We had to go through a different back door to make it happen, but it disrupted the flow of business. Now, the other thing that I'm fortunate of is that I never put all my eggs in one basket, and there's always another way for my business to function. Every aspect of my business, from ticketing to remote access to all these things, there's always another alternative way to function.
Redundancy, is that what you're saying?
That is redundantly what I'm saying.
So in all of your discussions, when you just kind of write it off, oh, that's in the cloud, you can't just do that for this reason. So granted, it was a day, but saying that that'll never happen again, or it couldn't happen longer, it's not a way to function.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, if I ask a question, for example, what are you doing to make sure that you can avoid downtime? Well, we're not going to have downtime. We're on AWS. Or we're not going to have downtime because we have cloud services. We purchase these cloud vendor services.
Yeah.
They can still have downtime.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care how big they are. How many times have you heard that? Well, it's Amazon. There's no way they're going to have downtime. It's Google. Yeah. There's no way they're going to have downtime.
It's Microsoft. They're, you know what? These are the ones that are under attack constantly more than even us. Number one. Number two is what I always say is if that goes down, other people are going to be having problems too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be the only one. Keep that in mind.
The other thing that we had to consider is when things like this happen, we have some of our clients that also use our platforms. Mm-hmm. That's part of what we do is we bring in not just our services, but also some of our products, which are cloud-based. And so when there's a disruption, not only do we have to figure out a separate alternative way to do business.
Mm-hmm.
We have to also make sure that our clients have an alternative way to access those same things. So now we've created some value when we sold it to them. Like, we're a value added blah, blah, blah. You get all this extra stuff. Well, guess what? When that extra stuff ain't working, now you have value added problems.
Yes. I've added value to my problems.
Yeah.
Definitely. So keep in mind that you must take into consideration, and I'd like to say, covered entities, they need to worry about maintaining care for patients, access to information as they need it to care for patients. And to keep in mind, what if you had something in a surgery center that relied on that? And it goes down like it did, and that may have happened. But you have to take into account, what if that did happen?
Mm-hmm.
But all of you business associates like David, he didn't just go, well, we're down and we're not supporting our clients right now until everything comes back up. You still have to provide services to your clients so that they can treat patients.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the BA of a BA and you try to tell me, it's no big deal if we go down, it's not that important. It's not important to you, but it could be huge somewhere else. So keep that in mind.
The other thing to remember is when you're having this discussion or you've already migrated to the cloud, understand you are shifting control of infrastructure around, but you are not outsourcing the risk, because you still take the risk, and you're also not outsourcing the accountability of those things. So if the confidentiality, integrity, and availability are interrupted, or AWS is not the one on hook for this, you are.
Right. So the mitigation of risk is why people move to the cloud, is that I can limit the risk that I have by having all of this on site, and the responsibility I have by having it all on site. But by mitigating that risk, I take on different risks that I'm still responsible for.
Yep.
So if I hire somebody that's horrible, I'm still responsible for that.
And in some cases, now probably very rare, but in some cases, having that infrastructure on site is probably a better choice. But that's where you have to do your own assessment. Yeah, you're definitely going to have risk either way. But
the cost of maintaining and keeping that up and keeping it secured, we'll get into the importance of that in just a minute.
Yep.
All right. You ready to give ourselves a report card?
Yeah. I love this time of year.
We just started with how we did.
Yeah. It's not the holiday season. It's the annual how do we do season.
Mm-hmm.
So every
put a
year,
fork in it season. There you go.
Yeah. Every year, Don and I will do our predictions for the year, and which is fun, to see how well we did, and so we're going to go through that. What did we say was probably going to happen this year? How well did we do with that? And then we'll give you what our predictions are for 2022.
Yeah. Well, we'll just call it swag.
Yeah, not the cool stuff you get in a bag.
No, the scientific wild ass guess.
Yep.
Okay, so good news. 2021 wasn't as completely unpredictable as 2020.
Yeah.
I used to slide in 2020 on a presentation that said, this is what we did with our plans that we made at the beginning of 2020, and it showed it going into a shredder.
Yeah.
At least we were educated on it, but all the things that are making things unpredictable, they're still happening.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, let's look at it. So our first thing that we said was security incentives for frameworks like NIST and 405D will drive a new approach to cybersecurity programs. It hasn't come complete fruition, but it's not like it's still in its infancy, but it is growing up quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is one of those ones where it's like, let's carry this over for another year.
Yeah. We think that's still going to happen. It's still continuing. SolarWinds details will trickle out and become the driving force for changes in supply chain requirements, especially those involved in IT infrastructure. that has happened. It is continuing to happen. It is ongoing.
So do you know the password that was used to get into the SolarWinds stuff?
SolarWinds, wasn't it?
SolarWinds 123.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
well, here's the thing is that somebody had to set it to that. It's not like it was admin or password where, maybe by default it was that way and somebody just forgot to change the default password.
Yeah.
Somebody had to set it that way.
And that's another value of a password manager. If you dump them all in, it tells you when you've got weak stuff.
Yeah. It's like, hey, stupid.
Yeah. So there's so many things. So a huge technology company had a major
security company too at that.
Yeah.
They sell cybersecurity services.
That impacted access to federal government systems along with a lot of companies. I'm just saying, had SolarWinds 123 as a password. So you see why we can never let up and make assumptions about the supply chain.
Yeah. The SolarWinds wake up call.
Mm-hmm. And it is making a huge difference. I mean, the reason that we're bringing in clients now that have nothing to do with healthcare, but they provide services. They're a small business providing services to large businesses who are now going, I want to see your policy and procedure on this. I want to know when you're doing these things. So it just makes it look good for us. Cyber attacks will continue to become more complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened.
Some of them are still doing the easy stuff, but it is now like how, the layers that they're doing where one gang is getting access to systems, selling that to another gang who is dropping off stuff and so it's just on and on and on. Where's the next one? Where am I, David? What's the next one?
Telehealth and remote work are a permanent part of work and care infrastructure.
I think that's a definite for sure. Companies will start to look at cybersecurity as necessary, not a luxury.
Yeah. They're
starting to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said starting. There's still a long way to go.
Yeah. They will start to do it.
Yeah. There's a long way to go in that. And this is I think a multi-year, if not forever type thing. But yes, they are starting to. I'm starting to get more people asking about cybersecurity, which kind of an interesting side note. I don't know if people know this, but you can go to, I think it's trends.google.com, but you can look at search trends for your area.
Yeah.
And so I did a search trend for tech support versus cybersecurity. And cybersecurity was almost non-existent, which is like, oh, geez.
That gets back to the episode you and Gary did on they're not the same thing, but tech support is what everybody's considering cybersecurity.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of buzz about security, ransomware, and all this kind of stuff. But when people are searching for that, at least in my local market, they're not necessarily grabbing these buzzwords that we use.
Right.
Cybersecurity is still not that. I asked a guy the other day, I said, look, if you needed cybersecurity help or computer help or whatever, what would you Google? And he said, IT. And I'm like, just it? You're just going to Google it? I mean, what's going to come up? The movie? I don't know. I mean, every word that has IT in it, I don't know. But it's just interesting how people try to find that information and that help.
And so many people don't know what IT stands for.
Heck, people can't even figure out, is cybersecurity one word or two? I mean, it depends on where you look.
Yeah, I'm bad about it too. I've decided it's one word. I'm trying to focus on having it one word.
It is. But again, depending on where you look, you'll see it both ways. And neither one apparently is wrong. So,
yeah.
Oh, well. All right. So the next one, virtual meeting platforms will focus more on being a work from home solution and not just remote meetings.
Yep. There's so many things now. They've done so many things to help you control your environment and, blur the backgrounds and those things have gotten so much better just so that whatever's happening in the background isn't distracting people. There's a ton of stuff there.
Yeah. What I've been surprised is that it doesn't seem like the hierarchy has changed much in virtual meeting platforms. Like nobody's really knocked Zoom off of its perch.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, because now they just say, like, I was doing a survey for something and it said, if we added, of these things, if we added it, would you use our services more? And one of them was a Zoom room with high-speed internet, for meetings. And I'm like, okay, so what you're talking about is a virtual meeting space where you could go in and have these meetings. But no, it's Zoom. It's kind of like Xerox.
Yeah, it's become its own word, which there are Zoom rooms. That's an actual thing.
Yeah.
But that's probably not what they were talking about.
No, it wasn't. I am certain it wasn't. Okay, where are we next?
Start seeing cyber fallout from 2020 sudden shift to work from home, including the IoT impacts. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're seeing it, but I don't think everybody I think technical people are seeing more of it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where you don't know what's happening until it's too late. And even then you don't know that you would even know that it's happening. But you have started seeing a lot more news articles that are pushed out to the broader public to say these 10 million home devices running this router thing is bad. And so I think a lot of that is starting to hit more, closer to home because companies are functioning from home now.
Yeah.
And so that $39 router that you bought
or that came with your internet connection from your ISP.
Yeah. And nobody updates them because, hey, flashing firmware is not something people tend to do.
No. Mm-mm.
And sometimes it's not that easy to do, depending on the firmware.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, it's the thing.
So the next one is Ryzen targeting home networks as an entryway into companies. We're not really seeing that yet because they're still figuring out the last one what we just talked about is, the vulnerabilities and how to use them because it is a different path. VPN and RDP attacks will rise due to remote work and all the vulnerabilities that keep showing up. Yep.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there seems to be not a week that goes by we don't hear about some type of VPN vulnerability or a VPN company that's, less than
legitimate.
What you want to use? Yeah. Yeah. And people are like, hey, I found this free VPN. And I'm like, stay away.
Yeah. I mean, what was the study one time about how many of the free VPN apps that were in the Google Play Store that were from China?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can count on them not monitoring your traffic. So, and then the last one, we see a lot of them proposed, but we have not seen them passed and implemented yet. More cybersecurity regulations will be coming and changing because of all the things we just mentioned. Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many proposals. It's
insane. We're seeing, I think, more traction at the state level, but we're going to talk more about this in a little bit. So,
All
right. That's the things we did for 2021. I think we did pretty jam up job.
Yeah, we do. We do usually, we do a pretty good job most of the time at educated guesses because we're educated and we're good at guessing. All right, so let's look at 2022.
Yeah, what do we think? What do we think is going to happen next 12 months? And wow, it's going to be tricky.
One of the things is like even LinkedIn, it's like everybody gets emotional about everything. And what's the number one thing we tell you about social engineering? They want to create an emotional reaction.
Yep. It's going to make you want to do something.
So that you do something, and it's just getting easier and easier, for people to create these emotional responses that in cybersecurity, I learned long ago to question, it's a mantra that someone that helps you, my therapist taught me was question yourself when you have an emotional reaction. Is this truly an emotional event? Okay, and you got to learn to classify what is an emotional event. Death of someone I care about, that's an emotional event. Somebody makes a comment I disagree with, not so much an emotional event.
Mm-hmm.
So that, or somebody sends out a news story that gets you fired up, not an emotional event. So try to remember that when your emotions are surging, because I see that creating a bigger problem. And I want to point out this educated guess stuff. I have a acquaintance friend that is actually a weather forecaster. Like at the time we met, he worked at the Weather Channel. He is involved in those things.
He's the one I can blame for the weather being nasty.
Yeah, right. And they give him, they attack people like, oh, they never get the forecast right. They said it was going to be this, and now it's right. And I'm like, I guess you take a lot of crap over that. He goes, yeah, I don't understand why people get mad if we can't predict the future right. If I'm wrong about how I predict the future, it's that I'm terrible.
It's in the presentation, because I've never seen a weatherman go, tomorrow's probably going to look like this.
Yeah.
It's usually tomorrow's going to be high 70, low, whatever. It's absolute. So
I love it when they say we're still watching the models, we're doing all this. Everybody misses that part. They skip that part,
Yeah.
But yes, so when you predict the future and people get mad at you because you incorrectly predicted the future, so keep in mind, that's what we're doing here. So we did okay. Anyway,
Yep. So
let's hit it,
we'll
brother.
Put on our Nostradamus hat on.
I'm looking over the moon.
Yeah. Rock me, Nostradamus.
Oh, yeah. That's a good.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All righty. So the first one we want to come up with and talk about is supply chain will continue to be a big story for two reasons.
Yes.
And of course, part of it we can say, wow, this is kind of a safe bet, supply chain.
Yeah.
But first of all, you got the cyber attacks in the supply chain.
Mm-hmm. That are
And
impacting all the way up.
Yeah. Up and down.
Yeah.
And then you got the inability to get the equipment that's going to start impacting the ability to replace hardware, which we're already seeing. And that means you got operating issues, unstable equipment. Right now, even if I order a laptop, some of the laptops, you go to order, it just says 4+ months shipping time. It's like, we don't know when we're going to get it. Sometimes you get it early. I've had things I ordered that said it would be 4 to 6 weeks, and I get it the next week. And I have other things I order, and they're like, a week later, they're just cancel my order. Like, we don't even know if we're going to get this anymore or not, period.
Yeah. So and we see it happen all the time, and it is improving to some extent, because we just went through this, we just gave Krista a hard time because of the new monitor we got for her that David and I had to taunt her about. But when we first ordered it, it was like, it's 4 weeks. And then 3 weeks in, they're like, oh, gosh darn it, we're not going to even get that model. But here's a model you could have if you want for the same price.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of stuff. And, it did come in. We did get it when, but they were basically like, look, this, we don't know when we'll see. This is very much like it. We'll give it to you for the same price.
Yeah.
That is a good thing. But what if that's a firewall I got to replace? What if that's a switch? The key pieces that run the network infrastructure in small business.
Yeah. What if your server goes down and needs to be replaced? Mm-hmm. And you're like, and your instant response is, well, we can probably get this thing replaced within a week.
Yeah.
Which might have been doable before all this happened.
Right. Well, my favorite is, how are you going to replace the equipment if, the building burns down? How are you going to, we got to back up. You got to put it on something.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to access it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I just call my IT. I just call David. I just call IT.
Well, you can do that because, my backups, if you buy the robust backup, I can actually spin up your infrastructure in the cloud.
Yeah, but I still have to be able to access it.
Oh, you
with
can.
a laptop.
Whatever you want from your phone.
Yeah. But your ability to get equipment quickly.
Oh, well, just this week, Monday, I wanted to order a laptop for an individual, for a business, individual in a business.
Mhm.
But I ordered the laptop. Within 30 minutes of the order, it was canceled. They said that they no longer had that version, which thank goodness they told me quick enough. Ordered another one. Same thing happened. I got like 2 hours later, I got another cancellation. They were out of that model. Finally, on the third time was a charm, that actually stuck, and I got that model. But I had the same day, I had to order 3 different times just to get a laptop.
So that is, at some point, it's been going on now. I mean, really, we saw it about 6 months ago. It started to be a problem, but that's when we were really we had all the vaccinations, and then everybody started like coming back to life in springtime, and all of this is going on. And it's consistently getting more and more complicated, and they all get back to, it's a chip. It's just a chip. It's something tiny that is blocking so many things. Cars and TVs and computers, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing is, how quickly will that tide turn? I mean, we see some breaking up the log jam, but every time you turn around, there's a new thing that throws a new log in it. And it's not like we make these here in the U.S. where we could go run down and, David's going to go help them make the laptop.
Yeah.
Everybody get out of the way.
It's funny because I did have somebody ask me, and after they said it, they thought about it. And it was like, oh, that was stupid. But I had one person, I said something about, it's hard for us to get the laptops in. They said, well, have you thought about buying the components and making it yourself? And then as soon as they said it, he was like, okay, that was stupid. It's like,
the whole reason we can't get them is the components. The
big manufacturers can't get the parts, I'm not going to be able to get the parts.
Oh my God. Have you thought about doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you just hate that when you say something and you're like, oh yeah, that was stupid.
There's that Bill Engvall, here's your sign.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is a thorn.
Yeah. Ransomware is going to continue to evolve. And honestly, there was a couple years ago, we said something like, ransomware is kind of starting to slow down some. We thought maybe something else was going to overtake it, but
2018, I think it slowed down. It kind of,
and we were like, I wonder if this is the end of ransomware. Dude, it came back with a vengeance, like that rash on. Never mind. But ransomware is taking off, and it is evolving like crazy.
I think we're going to have to start having new names for it, because what they're doing in a lot of ways now, ransomware is an element of what they're doing, but it's a bigger picture of ransom. And that lull may have been when the gangs were building. They were actually figuring out how to be organized crime instead of just individual crime.
If you think about it, when ransomware started making its rise, it wasn't as profitable. I mean, I remember seeing ransomware notes like $300.
Yeah. And it mostly targeted individuals, not businesses.
And so it was very much a numbers game of just getting just tons and tons of people to try to pay, but it wasn't really that lucrative. It was complicated. And so they've looked at all these business challenges and they've overcome. They're like, look, let's
find a better target market.
Yeah, this is working good. Let's pivot. Let's pivot. And now we're making more money. But also, there's so many people that would love to get into this business, but don't know how. So let's create ransomware as a service to help those individuals and entrepreneurial spirits of America and around the world to get into this industry with us. And there you have it.
Gotta love it. But the big thing is the gangs are when, it's like anything else. You have a whole bunch of criminals and they're all breaking into things. That's one thing. But when they organize and now they're able to utilize all of the resources and everybody's got different jobs and delegation and all of this. It's the proliferation of gangs that has really made it. But it was good to see that we have been doing some attack back stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where the military is actually actively saying, "You're coming after us, we're coming after you."
Yep.
When we've heard from the military cyber divisions, and there's several of them, you know, they talk about it being a defense tool for so much time. It's defense. But I did see a general, big dude, lots of things on. Yeah, very intimidating dude that was in charge of. There's a whole big cybersecurity for the Army thing here in Georgia, and he was speaking, and he said that they actually rotate people through now between defense cybersecurity and offense cybersecurity. Defend, attack, so that they rotate you through two different sides of the mechanism. Well, I think they're really now starting to do that when you see what happened with the Colonial Pipeline folks, where they shut them down and poof, all their money was gone.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know for sure who did that, but that was an attack back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. But the downside, like you and I have always talked about, when they shut them down, unless they actually find them and arrest them, which they've been able to do some, they do have, as we've mentioned, they're just like you said, a business.
Yeah.
And they have a business continuity disaster recovery plan too.
Well, not only that, but it's like any other criminal element. We've seen this, you know, for decades, if not hundreds of years. But anytime you take a power and you remove that power, there becomes a power vacuum, and then something else fills it. And what fills it may be worse than what was there before.
Yeah.
And so that's always going to be the problem, is you get rid of one gang and there's going to be another one that steps up and fills that vacuum. So it's not going to go away anytime soon. And the fact that the military is involved, it has been for a while, but we know so more now. Hopefully people will really start to get that we are in a cyber war. I don't care if you're sitting at home and you're playing on Facebook, you are in a cyber warfare battlefield. You're there.
You're operating in a war zone when you're on the internet.
You are there. You might not know it.
Start teaching it that way.
Yeah. But
you're operating in a war zone.
You got to figure something out. And, you know, high crime neighborhood. Yeah, that's what the internet is, but it's even more than that. It's a war zone. It's a battlefield.
Yeah. Well, we've already scared Elizabeth so much she won't open things when I ask her to. I don't know if I could get that image in her. I don't know what we would do.
Would you please send me something through U.S. mail? I will never click on your email again.
To go back to the days of chain letters in the mail.
Oh, gosh.
Shred.
You should send her a letter. Put a hyperlink looking thing in the letter and say, click here.
I should do that for her birthday's coming up.
Just to mess with her.
I like it. So we don't think that's going to get any better, but we also realize that ransomware is opening the door to things that are above and beyond ransomware. And I think that we're going to need to talk about it in two different ways, personally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's no longer its own thing, as you mentioned. You know, sometimes ransomware, well, probably more to not. Ransomware is kind of the last thing. Okay, we've done all these other things. Let's just set off the ransomware bomb at the end.
Well, they set off the ransomware bomb, and then they have all the other things they're going to ransom you with.
Yeah.
You know?
And we've talked about other things, and I'm afraid to give anybody ideas, but I doubt very seriously I'm giving criminals any ideas I hadn't thought about. But we've talked about, you know, the confidentiality and the availability. I'm afraid the next step is going to be looking at how can we infect the integrity of that data.
We made these updates, and we're not going to tell you what we did.
Yeah, and that's probably even more scary. It's like, we didn't take your data. We just changed it. Now, if you want to know what we changed.
Or when we changed it.
Yeah, when we changed it, how we changed it. That's kind of scary. Because then you should have to question the integrity of everything.
Yeah, and when you come to medical records, imagine that.
Yeah.
That I can't trust the data I have in a medical record. So, I mean, that alone, we talk about that with medical identity theft. Imagine it's all patients in a system.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is they'll start doing, to prevent the attack backs.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give you a proof of concept, if you will. I'm going to show you I have this level of control over your systems and I can shut you down. So pay me and I won't shut you down.
Right.
And the companies will be able to maybe keep you quiet. That'll be the only way to do that. There are so many ways that if they get in, they can ransom you and hold you hostage. That now they've learned they don't have to just lock down the systems to do that. There are so many ways, and locking down the system is just one.
Mm-hmm.
And ransomware is where it locks down the system, but now that encompasses so many other things. We've stolen your data. We're going to publish your data. We're going to call your patients. We're going to do all these other things. It's crazy. Okay, so the next one is really our big one, I think, because it's like a lot of ideas merged into one.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be more pressure on businesses to do better.
Yeah. So where is that pressure going to come from? That's the question.
Lots of places.
So let's start with the one that's kind of my favorite. Cyber coverage. Now, you and I both know that recently Lloyd's of London said to its, I guess, affiliates or whatever you want to call it, people that sell their stuff, they said, you will now cut the coverage in half and double the premiums. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So think about that. You're going to double the premiums, cut the coverage in half.
Because there's so many losses.
Yeah. And for those people who think, we say this a lot, oh, I've got cyber insurance, I'm not worried about this.
Yeah, that's not your cybersecurity plan anymore. No, that's got to stop. And that is part of the reason we're in this mess, is that's been the cybersecurity plan and we know that for a fact because we hear people say it.
Well, not only that, but the criminals are saying, look, I know what your cybersecurity coverage is and what it covers, and therefore that's why I'm asking for this amount of money. So no, I am not going to negotiate with you because I know your insurance will pay this.
Yep. So there's no part of I have insurance as a cybersecurity approach that'll work anymore. Increased pressure. And with that Lloyd's directive, they're also saying, I'm not just going to trust that you are doing the things, on the applications years ago, they started asking about, have you done a risk analysis? Do you have a risk management plan? The same things that, OCR would ask. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I believe that, when they look at insurance, the least amount of things they spend money on these days is actual fines and penalties that everybody talks about. Mm-mm. Yeah. No, it's all the other stuff. So,
yeah, I think we're going to start seeing more of the you got to prove it.
You got to prove it. Okay. The other thing is I guess we could merge these two. The SEC penalties for lack of transparency.
Yeah, these are things that are kind of on the radar. There are things that are still pending. But you got the SEC penalties, you got the new cryptocurrency regulations in several countries that will probably change the nature of ransomware. Mm-hmm. And we've also got ransomware disclosure laws. Uh-huh. And of course, they're getting some pushback. And, the thing that still interests me is how they're going to do these things and what effect are they going to have on businesses? Is it going to be, because imagine like someone we looked at, for example, and they say, when you have a cybersecurity incident, you've got 24 hours to notify, whatever the organization is, or you've got 36 hours to notify. You and I both know you don't know anything in 24 hours other than something bad's happened.
Right.
And how much pressure is that going to put on businesses, and what is the fallout for that going to look like? I mean, we've said this so many times, I don't even know how to say it differently, but either get ahead of the game now, or you're going to be scratching to dig yourself out of this hole later.
Well, and a lot of it does get back to, the accountability that you mentioned before. We have to be accountable for knowing that we are operating in a war zone and we're acting like we're on the playground.
That's a good way to put it.
So we can't continue to let that be okay. So I think that as the states and they're just trying to, one of the big things is report the incident so that we can activate those military resources and the law enforcement resources. If we don't know what tools or what methods they're using or where they're attacking, how can we attack back? So, that's a big part. And they're doing things so that you do report them to make you not be penalized for reporting that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
That this is what they're doing so that they could get ahead of a new trend that they see it like 3 or 4 places. Hey, wait a minute, that let's see what's going on here. That kind of thing. But it's that accountability that comes into play of anonymous reporting without any repercussions would help us attack back. But at the same time, if I don't report and I don't try to prevent it, shouldn't I be held some level of accountability?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're seeing that across the whole thing. And the idea of you're not allowed to pay the ransom, I think that's so complicated.
Yeah.
When the ransom is, I've stole your data and I'm going to release it.
Yeah.
What do I do?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do there. I understand what do we have to do to get these people to start taking this stuff seriously? Mm-hmm. And, there's even talk about let's drop cybersecurity insurance because that's what's, criminals are looking at it. Do you have cybersecurity coverage? And that's why it's become so lucrative. So if we don't have cybersecurity coverage, then would that cause the criminal element to go away or dwindle down because now they know they're not going to get that level of money? I don't know.
So there is a lot that's going to put pressure in places.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the state privacy laws, the fraud regulations, like we just saw in the New Jersey cases where they applied not only HIPAA requirements, but they said because you gave people a notice of privacy practices saying that you were going to follow the HIPAA security rule and you didn't follow the HIPAA security rule because we're penalizing you for that, you have now committed fraud under state fraud protections. Which, I'm not surprised they're doing that because, come on, that makes sense to me. Better than a lot of the other things is, if you violate HIPAA protections and I'm giving you a notice of privacy practices that says I'm going to follow those protections and I have no evidence whatsoever that I really did follow through on that, is that not the classic definition of fraud?
I say so.
Okay. I was like, you're nodding and we're on audio, David.
I'm on video.
We're on video. We're in,
Well, I mean, there, you can probably hear the little bit of a rattle.
Such a goober. But we do see there's the carrot versus the stick thing.
Yep.
It create incentives for businesses to do better rather than punishment if they don't do better. How can we help them do better is really where we want to go, which takes us to our next one.
Yeah. What's really bad is when they beat you with the carrot, though.
I know. I got there. I'll see the carrot. I get there, and then you're just beat to death. You just thought this was a carrot. It's an orange stick.
Oh, boy. Yeah. So HIPAA specific.
Yeah. This is a HIPAA specific recommendations. The adoption of recognized security practices. We're excited about recognized security practices because, it references 405D. We're part of it. We see it as finally the carrot, not the stick, and it's not an orange stick. And that we finally are seeing something that says, go do these things so that you can prove you were doing everything that you could be. You were doing, you weren't just trying to find the simplest way to check a box.
Right.
And that alone, we've been talking about it all year. I've started to see things that let me know we're soon going to have more details about what they expect to see. But when those details come out, we've got to get people to, you should already be doing it. Because if you started doing it when we first told you to do it, you'd already be at your 12 months this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying 12-month clock. So recognize security practices, the high-tech amendment, public law, 160, blah, 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 whatever they call it. The bottom line is that it should roll out and we would get the official documentation on it. But the other stuff, that NPRM that's been sitting out there over a year about the privacy rule. I mean, it was supposed to go into effect last December and they kind of held on it, and it's got a ton of stuff in it. I'm hoping they'll implement some of the good stuff in it. The not having to sign for the NPP anymore, just changing the NPP and what you require on it, but not having to sign for it. That alone, awesome. So we're going to see things happen, and we haven't seen things change like this in years, but we're going to see them. All right, here's our last stuff. Hit it, brother.
The vulnerability software will continue to be discovered regularly, including 0 days.
Yeah.
So yes, 0 day. Now, if you don't know what a 0 day is by now, because we have seen this a lot this year, 0 day, 0 day, 0 day. I think people are starting to get the understanding of what it is. If you don't know, it's basically a vulnerability that the manufacturer is not yet aware of. And so they have known about it for, so they have known about it for 0 days. That is where it comes from. Once it's known, it no longer is 0 day. And these things are super expensive to purchase. And so people who find these things, if they want to sell them, then there's a lot of money that can be made. Now, on top of this is not something you and I have talked about, Donna, but on top of this, you've got people like Microsoft who used to pay for bug bounties a fairly decent amount of money. They've cut that amount of money down considerably, which is not good.
No.
Because now when you have security researchers or other people that are deciding they'll use their skills for good, they'll find these bugs, these 0 days, and they'll turn them into Microsoft for a bug bounty. Now they're saying, look, we're doing all this work and you're going to pay us $1,000 when it used to be worth $20,000, for example. Follow the money. Where are they going to get more of their money? I think it's a very, very bad business practice to when somebody finds a critical flaw in your software and they bring it to your attention and you have cut the amount of bug bounty you're going to give them down to something that's not even worth their time. Right. That's not going to go well. So when you take the level of vulnerabilities are increasing and 0 days are increasing, and at the same time, you're disincentivizing people that are helping you find these things, that's a recipe for disaster.
I concur.
Great.
And I mean, we're seeing that already. I mean, like we're just the log4j patch.
Yeah.
This is okay here. Yes. log4j. That makes everybody be like, that's a nerdy stuff. It is. But really what you need to know is this is a 0 day that is easy to exploit. And well, I don't even know if it's a 0 day. I think there's a fix, but we didn't know that the exploit was there. They're a different version. At any rate, the entire internet, pretty much, for the most part, has this problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this hit the news, I think, yesterday.
Mhm.
And I mean, I had multiple vendors, but before the end of the day, I'm having multiple vendors saying, this is what we're doing for the Log4j or Log4j. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. And so, yeah, it's lit the internet on fire.
Yeah, big time. And, we just recently saw the article just a few weeks ago from Krebs saying the internet is held together with a spitball and baling wire. Yeah, something like that. So, the fact that we started off talking about how we're all so cloud dependent now and the value of it, keep that in mind that those vulnerabilities are out there, and it's anything that uses, if you've heard the term Apache server, there's, big problems. And it's just, there's Java issues, and there's so many layers of things that can go wrong to assume that that's not going to get worse. And you're right that there's people that sit out there and just look for them.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of this, I'm a big proponent of defense in depth or security in depth. And so I want layers of security. And the reason I want layers of security is because I'm not assuming that they're all going to function properly all the time. They're not going to find problems. There's not going to be a vulnerability that one of them can't exploit or whatever the case might be. It just makes sense when you look at something like your home, because I like thinking about defense the same way I'm defending my house. Just because my door lock functions fine and for 20 years nobody's ever kicked my door in doesn't mean that I'm not going to also have a deadbolt or an alarm system or a dog or a shotgun. I'm not going to remove those levels of protection and security because nothing's happened in 20 years and my little lock that came on my door works fine.
On the knob.
Yeah, exactly. Not going to do it. So when people come out there and they say, well, there's no need to use VPNs anymore because all the website traffic is HTTPS. No, I don't agree with that because, again, with my analogy, you're saying just because the door lock functions fine now, we don't need all this other stuff. No, I completely disagree with that because the moment HTTPS isn't functioning properly because somebody found some flaw or some vulnerability, guess what? You remove the only other thing that was there to protect you and you have nothing. And so, yeah, I go and I say, fine, I don't need the alarm system. I don't need the shotgun. Don't need the dog. Don't need the deadbolt. Let's just go back to the little knob lock. And then somebody kicks my door in and somebody goes, what did you take the other stuff out for? Well, because I thought it was good enough. And I've never had a problem in 20 years. It's going to be ridiculous. So no, with the level of threat and cybersecurity issues we currently have only increasing, you don't also decrease the amount of protection you're putting in place. That makes no sense.
No, it does not.
Okay. Off my soapbox.
It was a good one, though. That was a good soapbox moment. Yay. I really like that. All right. So we know VPNs, RDP, IoT, IOMT, OT, servers.
OMG. LOL. RTFM.
Yeah, there you go. We don't need no stinking backup. That's the developer's last words. But it's in the home networks. It's in all of these things now that it's an exponential attack surface. And there's so many ways. And the social engineering and your honorable mention of deep fakes, how easy it is to build those.
Yeah, I figured I'd just throw that out there. We've not heard a lot about it, but I think it's either in use or it's not far away from being in use because the software to do this with is easy to get. It's dirt cheap. I already have it. And I didn't even buy it for this purpose. It's like a side benefit of this particular software I have that it can create deep fake audio.
Yep.
And that's not its purpose. Its purpose is for editing audio, but it can do really flipping good deep fake stuff for audio. And so the fact that it's dirt cheap to get, the fact that it's very impressive, I think you're going to start seeing the criminals use that, especially whenever you have people that are putting content out there. Like you and I, we're put out, there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of my voice on the internet. So creating a voice deepfake of me, simple to do. Now, can that then be used against my clients? Can it be used against my staff? Can it be used against you? Can somebody create their own podcast and be me? I don't know. But it's not to say that you got to stop doing all this stuff. It's to say that you just need to know where the vulnerabilities are and what are you going to do to make sure you mitigate those.
Indeed, my friend. Indeed.
Because
I have horrible scenarios from deep fakes that I'm not even going into. We'll do that in another episode because we got to put a fork in it.
That's right. We are done, folks. Thanks for listening. That is our review of 2021 and what we think the whole year is going to hold in 2022. And I know one thing we definitely know is going to happen. We're going to have one heck of a time in Kentucky.
True that.
That's right. So hope to see you there. It's going to be fun. Put it on your calendar. Get there. And I just can't wait. Bourbon and Breeches is going to be amazing. So remember, share this show out. Help us spread the word. Share it out on social media or wherever else you go. Put a banner on your car. Drive around. That's fine too. Doesn't matter. Make sure you give us a rating in our podcasting app and help us spread the word. And remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.